Hey, what's going on? Jeff Ratcliffe here. On paper, the 2019 New York Giants, they look like they could struggle a little bit. But is there fantasy value to be had with the Giants this year? Let's preview the New York Football Giants for 2019 fantasy football. And let's start with, we know there's value at running back. Saquon Barkley was phenomenal last season. 352 touches on the year. He ends up finishing as the number 2 fantasy back in PPR, 91 catches. I mean, he does it all. And that's sort of the beauty with Saquon Barkley. If he wasn't getting it done on the ground last year, he was destroying opposing defenses as a receiver. So if you're worried about Saquon potentially seeing stacked boxes this year, which is a viable concern, just know that with what he adds in the passing game, he's almost matchup proof. There's no player out there who I would necessarily say is completely matchup proof, but if there is a player who can put up big time fantasy numbers, even on a bad team, I don't like good running backs on bad teams for fantasy, but Saquon is that guy this year. He very likely will be the number 1 running back taken in your drafts, and he's a true bell cow. When you look down the depth chart, there really isn't anybody else there who's going to be able to steal touches away from him. So Saquon Barkley in the driver's seat, he'll probably go 1. If he doesn't go at 1, he's not going to go much past number 2 in your PPR drafts this year. He's a stud. It doesn't matter the overall state of the Giants offense. But, of course, the overall state has been impacted this offseason with Odell Beckham Jr. being traded to Cleveland. He's out of the mix. The OBJ era is over. So who's the wide receiver to pick up the slack? If I had to place my chips on one of these guys, I do think it's Sterling Shepard over Golden Tate. And the reason for it is Shepard is a pretty versatile receiver. In fact, our college analysts at Pro Football Focus loved him coming out of the college level, had the ability to play on the outside and in the slot. Now, sharing the field with Odell Beckham Jr., where do you think targets are going to go? Of course, they're going to go more to OBJ than they do to Shepard. But last year, Shepard was pretty solid. It was quiet, but he finished as the number 29 fantasy receiver last year. A big part of that, 11 end zone targets. That's a big number, so he was seeing a lot of work down there. Now, of course, we know Eli Manning didn't do a great job of converting a lot of those end zone throws for touchdowns, but at least the volume was there for Shepard. So that versatility, the fact that maybe the Giants are playing from behind a bunch this year, all of that bodes well for Shepard to be a nice value as a later wide receiver 3 consideration. So outside of the top 30, but inside of the top 40, I think he's an intriguing option. You're probably not going to have to pay much for him on draft day. And I do like him ahead of Golden Tate because, hey, what have we seen out of Golden Tate? Well, in his time with Detroit and even going back to Seattle, a strong PPR option who did not give you a lot of touchdown upside. That's the one knock on him. And it comes down to that end zone work. When he was with Detroit, he was basically seeing no work once the Lions got into the red zone. That could continue here as well. So, if you're going to choose one of these two, it's Shepard, and I think it's pretty clear. Now, of course, at tight end, the Giants have a pretty darn good receiver in Evan Engram. He did take a step back in his overall fantasy production. Last year, he had that breakout rookie year, but you kind of have to know why that production happened in his rookie year, right? Odell Beckham was hurt for a good chunk of that season, and then Shepard was banged up as well throughout parts of that season. So Eli Manning basically had nobody to throw the ball to. We saw Evan Engram get over 100 targets that year. Last season, that number goes all the way down to 63. So we saw some regression, but there's a lot more meat on the bone now with OBJ out of the mix. So, look for Engram to take a step forward. He can be a red zone asset in this offense as well. He's not an elite option. He's not one of the big 3, right? Kelsey, Kittle, Ertz. He's not there, but that next group of 5 tight ends to come off the board, Evan Engram is in that mix, and he's a solid option who should have a lot of opportunity. Like I said, Giants could be playing from behind, and all right, Eli Manning, are we coming to the end of the line? Typically when a team drafts a quarterback as early as the Giants did this year, they drafted Daniel Jones 6th overall, that quarterback gets on the field, so this could be the end of the line for Eli Manning, but certainly Eli Manning's days as a viable fantasy quarterback, they're well in the past. We're far removed from that. Even in 2 quarterback leagues, you can't feel too comfortable entering the year with Eli Manning as one of your quarterbacks on your roster. So I think the clock is ticking ultimately for Daniel Jones. But even when Jones gets on the field, I'm not that overly concerned about Sterling Shepard and Evan Engram. I think their value comes this year from potentially volume from the Giants playing from behind. So even in a bad situation, there is fantasy gold potentially to be mined here from the New York Giants. You want to see where these guys land in our rankings? Go check us out at pff.com.